of the BioHub. Today, we have the honor of hosting Dr. Claudia Zylberberg, a visionary leader in cell and gene therapy. Claudia is the founder of Akron Bio and founder and, start again. Why have I put that in there like that? Welcome back to another episode of the BioHub. Today, we have the honor of hosting Dr. Claudia Zylberberg, a visionary leader in cell and gene therapy. Claudia is the founder of Akron Bio, founder and chair of Coston Digital, and the founder and board chair of Our Science Biotherapeutics. With over 30 years of experience, she has generated multiple patents and publications advancing regenerative medicine. We'll dive into Claudia's journey, discussing AI and advanced therapies, startup building, and the mentality required for success in biotech. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome Claudia. How are you, Claudia?
Good, great. Nice to be here with you and chatting about this important chapter of my life, which is 30 years of experience around this industry. But
Yeah,
thank you for having me.
it's a pleasure to have you. I mean, I was just saying that before we jumped on, but it really is. Let's just start by you just sharing what initially drew you to the field of regenerative medicine, and then also what inspired you to found Akron Bio.
Actually, about 30 years ago, my background, I have a PhD in immunology and actually was working in the blood and plasma industry, manufacturing actually immunoglobulins. So working and concentrated a lot on the plasma. But looking at the blood as a whole, I knew that there were cells, and the cells could do some work there that would be interesting to explore a little bit further. And actually, was at that time that the industry and the scientific community was talking a lot about stem cells
Hmm.
and stem cells here and stem cells there. And a lot of people in the US particularly was related stem cells with embryonic stem cells. Was a period of a gray zone area that everybody couldn't understand exactly what the cells were doing, but they knew that they hold and they had a key for some potential. And I thought so too, because I saw what the value was bringing, the immunoglobulins coming from plasma. So at that time, I was looking for something that was easy to get into the industry, that was the beginning, and just helping agnostically any cell type. So Akron Bio was created with the idea to build tools and technologies to serve the nascent regenerative medicine industry, basically see what the cells could do, but on a more high quality environment. Because usually when you produce plasma or any biologics, that process has an opportunity to clean up the product at the end or sterilize the product at the end. And with the cells was going to be a different ball game in terms of
Hmm.
manufacturing. So I thought that maybe creating those tools with a high quality component in mind was going to be a driver in the industry in the future. And that's what we created Akron with a couple of components that we thought that the cells needed to expand and grow.
So you almost just saw the way the market was going and was like, well, there's going to be a need for this in the future, and we can kind of grow as the market grows a bit. In
That's
layman's
correct.
terms,
Yeah.
yeah, nice. And then Akron Bio was instrumental in providing GMP compliant materials for advanced therapies. Can you discuss some of the key challenges you face in the early stages of building Akron?
It's an interesting question because at the beginning of Akron, the years 30 years back, the concept of GMP was only given to pharmaceutical products that were given to patients. The idea of manufacturing GMP components to make a cell therapy was very awkward for in general for the industry. Everybody was using the regular cytokines from the big houses that were R&D only, that had
Hmm.
very little information and little consistency batch to batch. And I will go back to that, why it's so important. So I said, well, let's do the quality component. But when I realized that we added the quality layer to the product, the cost was going up. And the market was not able to support that cost at the beginning because they said, why I need to pay that much? Why this product is needed? They were not giving those products to patients yet. So it was very hard for creating a mindset and creating together with the growth of the industry that these products that were researched in a university or academic center was going to transition and going into patients and into someone's bodies that was already in a debilitated condition because they are sick patients. So how can we create a product that is consistent, that has high quality, and doesn't bring any and brings safety for those patients that are in particular need? And those components on the manufacturing side, remember that I mentioned before, the
Mhm.
manufacturing scheme of a cell therapy is not the same as any biologic. You cannot clean up the product at the end. So, whatever you put in for the cells to be expanded is what the patient will receive at the end of the day. So, that situation and that mindset needed to be created. It's a create a market. At the end of the day, you are creating a market, creating a mindset. And it was hard at the beginning. It was very, very hard. So at the very beginning, what my motto was is I'm not only creating a product, I need to create the framework for it. So I
Mhm.
started to work with USP pharmacopoeia, with EP pharmacopoeia, with the people to do standardization with ISO. So I did some work also on the outskirts of what Akron was doing because we needed to create the framework for these products to exist. And that was part of the work that we've been doing for the last 30 years.
That's amazing. I'm always really interested with the people behind it as well. If you look at your experience, you have both scientific but also the entrepreneurial aspects of biotech. I mean, how do you balance these two roles, and what skills have been most crucial in your success?
You know, it's very hard to be a scientist and an entrepreneur. Is not a mix that it's easy to find. We
Hmm.
find more and more lately, but at the very beginning was not something that you could mesh that easily because a scientist was a scientist and doing research, and entrepreneur was looking for money and making a company, and those two waters is like oil and water. How can you mix them together, make an emulsion? And it happens that I had the two assets. That doesn't mean that they were perfect. I could blend them and create and see the market how it's going because it's at the end of the day, it's kind of a research thing. You research a market, you research a drug, you research is an attitude. You research and you create that situation. But I'm not doing everything alone. If I tell you that everything was done by myself, it's impossible. You need to create teams, you need to
Hmm.
create groups, and everyone will bring their strength, and that small community can push forward. The vision of a leader is to bring the right team together and to put all these people to work towards that objective, which sometimes is easy and sometimes it's not that easy. And you have a few bumps on the road. But once you create a nice team, it's a great deal and you can push everything forward. But it's not one person; it's just a group. It's much needed to create that type of team so we can execute properly. So
Yeah, I think that's so important, and I'm not just saying that because I'm a recruiter. And you need the right people.
yeah,
But I mean, I even do that at my level. So I imagine it's even more important at your level, where you look at yourself and you go, right, okay, here are my strengths, here are my weaknesses. More importantly, that they're the things that I need to, build around and almost bring that expertise through in someone else. I mean, in simplistic terms, you look at my team and you go, right, okay, Max, you're really good at hiring financial, legal, commercial, those sorts of people. So you need someone who's great at discovery,
that's right.
preclinical, and you build your team that way. So it's quite simplistic when you look at it like my team. I don't know if it's that simplistic for you.
No, it was not that easy at that time because, again, you're talking about an industry that need to create those personas. They
Yeah.
didn't exist before. So you need to create that. Okay, you have this. Well, you need to learn this, and then you become that particular person. So
Yeah,
if you were a scientist and you were academic all your life, well, look at this. Like, needs to be consistent every time. So you need to solve problems, and how can this be consistent? This process can be done over and over again without a flaw. So you create an engineer with a mix of scientists, and at the same time, it's interesting because you need to create a new person, a new entity with the knowledge and expertise that is grabbed from different areas.
yeah. So, I mean, AI is a buzzword that's been, well, kind of like what you were saying with stem cells. Like AI is almost the buzzword of today in biotech, and it's revolutionizing many fields, including advanced therapies. How do you see AI impacting the future of regenerative medicine and also just biotech as a whole?
It's interesting because AI makes sense if you have large and bulk amounts of data. And that data needs to be generated, has to be curated, and has to be applicable to a way of being consistent and grow with time. It's like a plant, you grow it with time. And regenerative medicine is it's new and it's not necessarily an industry that mounts for a large amount of data. It's very small, but you have very different compartments on the process of manufacturing, on the process of the clinical, post clinical approval, and even following patients later on that it's needed. But the data, it's very thin, very lean, very small, the amount of data compared with bulk amount of data that you can have from hospital settings or from
Hmm.
payers to justify their reimbursement to a specific drug. So each industry has a different. The AI will have different value, and some of them will be more immediate the result, and for others will be a little bit over time. And that's what I see in the regenerative medicine. As long we identify pieces of the scheme between patient acquisition to patient delivery of the drug, we can identify those parts that will generate data to refine the manufacturing, to refine the patient selection, to refine the analytics afterwards. It's something that will create a large impact because we will be more accurate,
Hmm.
more efficient in the manufacturing, and being more efficient means that we will be able to impact in the cost, and with that the impact on the payer side and reimbursement. So in an overall, I think that it's a good moment for the regenerative medicine to look into machine learning and AI and see how vast amounts of data that is created by different groups consolidated under one umbrella, and be able to use that data to create better solutions, efficient, safer, and cost effective, which is something that is a critical and important because the cost of those therapies are quite high. And so it's important to create that knowledge and expertise so payers can justify their reimbursement and
Hmm.
hospitals can create opportunities of where, depending on the incidence of that disease, makes sense to bring this type of technologies in-house or this type of drugs offering for patients of a specific geographic region. So there is a lot of interesting tools that AI can bring to
Hmm.
make things better.
So, so do you think that AI could likely be the solution to, cell and gene therapy currently being so expensive? Or
Could be one of the opportunities. I think that the cost of manufacturing a monoclonal at the very beginning, if we're talking about biopharmaceuticals, was huge. Was 100K, 200K. I don't recall right now exactly a number, but we are in the thousands, not in the six figures that it was at the very beginning. And that is because the manufacturing became more efficient, leaner, and we learn more about the analytics and the clinical outcomes and so forth. The same will happen with the cell therapies in another scale.
yeah.
Um, But in the menu of cell therapies, we have autologous, we have allogeneic, we have gene therapy, we have tissue engineering, and each one of them is a world in itself. So some of them will create an opportunity to lower the cost with AI if the data can be shared agnostically between different companies, which is something that is still a lot of reluctancy to do that.
Yeah.
Eventually will help tremendously to create solutions that are a little bit lower in cost and more efficient.
Why is there reluctancy? Like,
Sorry.
why is there that reluctancy to take it forward? Like,
This space, the IP, the intellectual property is quite weak in a
okay,
way, and so the data is weak because what you do is growing the cells, construct here, construct there. Um, But at the end of the day, it's the IP part of it is quite weak and depends compared with other drugs. So I think that the value is in the data and how that can be generated. So I think that people are more guarded on the data, but if they understand, and they are understanding right now, and there are some um, non-profit and non-biased organizations or blinding data that are trying to create those hubs so the data is available and the decisions that can be made can be more intelligent
yeah,
through AI and algorithms.
that makes sense. Like, yeah. Um, so, as someone who's co-founded multiple companies, what are the key elements that you believe are essential for successful startup building in biotech?
Being very resilient, very resilient. This industry has many ups and downs, and when you are in a young industry that is growing and you will have those ups and downs and back and forth. You go back 2 steps to move forward three. So it's you need to be resilient. You need to be persistent. You know that what is your north, and you go there, but you know that the journey will not be a smooth ride. So you need to be
Hmm.
prepared for that. And some people have that in their DNA and they can be resilient. Some people at the first stone, they give it up and they give it away. And I used to have an advisor that passed away, Donnie Strasberg, actually. He was a great scientist here at Scripps Institute in the US, but he was originally from France. And he used
Okay.
to say, well, you need to kiss 10 frogs to find a prince. Well, that's the idea. You need to kiss 10 frogs to find your prince. That's the way it is.
Yeah, I, I mean, I completely get that. Even from an external vendor point of view, like you have to be resilient. You have to roll with the punches. So I can't even imagine what it's like, in the startup world. How do you prepare yourself for that? Like, and I suppose I'm asking it because there's so many people whose dream is to have their own biotech startup or to be the CEO of it, or they there's students who are spinning out who are then starting their own company, like not necessarily with any experience under the belt. Like how do you prepare? Like, can you?
Nothing prepare you for that. I think that it's important to be honest to yourself. Do you have it or you don't have it? And if you don't have it, you have other roles that you can fulfill.
Yeah.
Because if not, you get frustrated. If you don't have it and you push yourself, and there is so much no that you can take, there is so much failure that you can take. Um, there is a quote from Edison, Thomas Edison says, when you feel that that's it, you feel we finished with all the options. Guess what? There is more, and it's true. There is more, but you need to have that in you. Uh, and sometimes that vision of yourself is very hard. Seeing yourself. Do I see myself in this? And be honest. Do I have it or not? I can
Yeah.
be part of this, but I can be part in another role, and it's okay too.
Yeah.
That's all.
and, and I for the reason we just spoke about, like with biotech being so volatile, I'm so fascinated on mentality, mindset in the space. Can you just share your insights into how you maintain a positive and a resilient mindset, especially during the challenging times?
Listen, always the rain will stop, and always the sun will shine after the storm. That is nature. So this is not going to be bad forever. So at one point, something will give, and that's my attitude. I know that maybe sometimes going through is hard,
Hmm.
but I know now by experience. But at that time was by intuition that at one point something is going to give. Listen, when we opened Akron, Akron was founded in 2006, mid 2006. Yeah. And by 2008, beginning of 2008, was a big recession here in the US, huge recession. And I said, it makes sense to keep going. It's been a year for this company, less than a year. It doesn't make sense to me go through this huge thing, which is a recession, and and move on. But I said, you know what? It's not going to be forever. It's tough, yes. It's hard, yes. Was painful in the pockets, in the financial part of the company, yes, it was. But he said at one point it's going to give. So
Yeah,
let's keep moving. Let's keep moving.
yeah. And what have you got to lose in that aspect as well? Really, like when you actually think it through and break it down, it's like there's nothing really to lose by carrying on and doing this, and there's everything to gain.
Well, financially speaking, you're putting a lot of sacrifice. You have families, you have behind you a baggage that you need to balance and consider when you make decisions. But that decision to move forward no matter what
Yeah,
uh, needs to be taken as a family. Everybody support each other, which is my case. My family said, "You want to move forward, we will support and we will be here for you," which is great. You have a kind of a support system. You're not alone.
yeah. And no regrets kind of mindset as well.
No, zero, zero.
Uh, then looking further into the future, like collaboration and partnerships, like especially in today's market, like absolutely vital. How have you fostered successful collaborations throughout your career, and what advice would you give to others looking for those strong partnerships?
First of all, in this industry, a customer end up not being a customer, end up being a partner, because what the truth is, you want them to succeed, because if they succeed, you will succeed. So, I think that that idea that you have a commercial only relationship is not true. You have an obligation for them to be successful, give them all the data that they need, give them all the support that they need. And that is part of the GMP environment that we created around Akron, the data that they need so they can support their product as best as they can so they can have their approval. And then we have a long term relationship, because once you spec in your product inside their therapy, it's a long term relationship. But in any case, there are other type of partnerships that we foster during the years of Akron, and even our science and Costin. And all those are relationships with either nonprofit organizations, and create organizations like the coordination body that I had the chance to build together with some people, actually ex FDA, Richard McFarland and others, to create a coordination of the standards for the whole industry, even my competitors. We have a great relationship with our competitors. We know each other well. We are competing, of course, for our products, but we know each other well. And I truly believe that the standard coordination body was created, let's say, with ISO standards for ancillary materials, not only favored Akron, it favored all the other ones that are in the marketplace, and needs to be fair. And I think that when you create that openness and mindset, your product is your product, and you stand behind your product. And the product of someone else is the product of someone else. And we can coexist. And the idea that there is coexistence type of opportunity is something that I foster as well. And I think that the standardization of the industry, we sat down, all of us, all the competitors sat together to create the standards of the industry. And those standards are the ones that govern us and our products. So we are better for patients, better for our clients. And the rest, well, if you need to acquire a client, is competition, like any fair competition that is out there. But I think that the collaboration between these manufacturers or partnership with our clients create a strong relationship that lasts for a long, long time. This is the beauty of this GMP environment for these materials.
I think that's yeah. I mean, that's kind of everything I talk about as what I want with my clients long term, and that's the end goal really. And it's how do you get to that point? So I yeah, I really I appreciate that so much. And then you're talking about the global standardization, um, and obviously the regulatory efforts and what's been going on at the moment is quite significant. I mean, how do you see the regulatory landscape evolving for advanced therapies, and how should companies be preparing, do you think?
Well, I think that there is a big need right now for patients globally to access to these therapies. Although each continent and each country particularly is in a different stage in terms of regulatory understanding, I think that right now we are all in one particular level, some more advanced than others, but these therapies need to be accessed globally.
Hmm.
So now you see CAR T happening in India, CAR T happening in Spain. And I think that everybody wants to have a piece of it, not travel to have a treatment in another country because it's costly and not many people can access, but have those therapies in your own territory. And for that, it's important to have an harmonization of the regulatory landscape. And I think that many organizations are working around it. There is an international harmonization committee that was done a long time ago for pharmaceuticals and for blood derived products. And I'm sure that this regulatory landscape is going to, in terms of regenerative medicine and advanced therapies, which is the most accurate way to name it, are
Hmm.
going to grow because each country would like to have their own therapeutic options for their population. And I think that it's a fair situation. So, most likely, what will happen is that each country has already an idea of how this, and they maybe follow EMA or they follow FDA, depends on their affinity of their already regulatory
Yeah.
skeleton bones. So sometimes they get more aligned with one or the other, but definitely there will be an harmonization because there will be a globalization on the manufacturing of these therapies. Autologous, perhaps mainly first, but others will follow for sure.
Yeah, I find that so genuinely interesting. I mean, I'm so engrossed in the US biotech that I don't have really the expertise in Europe, but I think that global dynamic is actually really interesting. I mean, even if you look at beyond regulatory and you look at US, China, that kind of relationship, it's all crazy. I find it all so interesting.
Yeah. And that's why AI eventually will come. When you start to serve clients globally, where the data come from and can be accumulated so we can
Okay,
create better solutions, better understanding of patient outcomes, predict those outcomes is going to be an interesting
that will be so
scene.
interesting. Yeah. Just moving on, just to something you're passionate about, which is empowering the next generation of biotech innovators. What initiatives and strategies do you believe are most effective in supporting and mentoring young scientists and also entrepreneurs as well, young entrepreneurs?
Yeah. Well, I started from a very young age, and I actually did a book. I wrote a book called You're Full of Genes. And so that book It's out there. So it's for someone that wants to see it. And it's learning about genetics and how genes and CRISPR and gene editing, it's happening out there, which is important because you not only create a new generation of eventually young scientists. Kids are scientists from their beginning. They are little explorers and little researchers from a young age. So just give them, feed them as much as you can. And then eventually, as they grow, they become passionate. When they become passionate about something, is the best that you can create in someone, because passion is the driver. Besides the knowledge and expertise, passion drives. And so I think that if you can create that from the very, very beginning, it's a great thing. STEM programs and so forth. I've been involved, you name it, since my beginning of my career. When I was actually in Canada, I lived in Vancouver for many years. I was in immigrant scientists initiatives to bring young scientists that were immigrants in Canada to be able to be in the country and create a community of them. Then eventually I did a lot of courses. I actually wrote a couple of curriculums for programs within Nimble and Army, which are the two uh, federal funded consortia here in the US. So there was a particular segment of the money that went to training, and I was involved in those curriculum design. And besides that, any facilitate or groups that have women and young women, I was a speaker there. I was trying to, and eventually people that just pick up the phone or send an email, I will take them. And I know that they may have questions and they would like to learn more, and I am here. I'm always available for them. So there are different levels of ways to interact with the young generation, and each organization today exists has a segment for young entrepreneurs, and I try to be as much as I can involved and bring my experience and bring my beginnings and how I am here today and my journey. So I don't know if they can learn, but definitely listening to another's experience is enriching in one way or the other.
Yeah, I think it's beautiful. I love that. I mean, that's part of the reason I started the podcast because I was genuinely interested in people's mindsets and
Yeah.
stories and experiences. And yeah, I completely get that. Like one last little question from my end, then, Claudia, which is, we obviously just spoke about all your experience and achievements. What advice would you give to someone just starting their journey in biotech?
If you have passion and you know what you're looking for and you have a great product, medicine, therapy, you name it, um, just make sure to get organized and have all your ducks in a row. Be consistent, be resilient, um, learn and be open to learn as much as you can from your environment. Take every opportunity, even the ones that look silly. Just do it, because each one will bring a little bit something extra to add to your pile and for you to learn. So take every opportunity you can to learn. And the most important thing, and I tell you this as a leader of different organizations, most importantly is not how to get into the industry and is when it's time to get out. It's more important to understand when the timing of what you're doing needs another type of leadership, needs another type of team. Have that emotional intelligence to make decisions. Because if you take it too long, you may break it and then you get frustrated again. So you need to know timing and learn to read the cues for that. That is my sincere advice.
I love that. Yeah, I can sympathise that with in other industries as well, definitely. But thank you so much for coming on, Claudia. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My pleasure. It was really good, really nice conversation.
Please like and subscribe to the BioHub. And thank you again, Claudia.
Thank you.